welcome to Retro Warriors episode 476. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by viable human Chris Saturn.
Hi, Justin.
Who's viable and will be viable for many more years.
Yeah, we're just a couple of really upbeat, friendly guys.
We had the darkest pre-show. It was so dark.
It's fine.
Oh no, it was dark.
Oh, it's fine.
It was very dark. So to uncut listeners, we're sorry.
No, it's fine.
Sorry for your existential crisis.
No, we've moved on from that, Justin. Everything's
Let's
upbeat.
talk about fun things.
Yeah.
I want to talk about my week. I ordered and received. I ordered. God, I hate their fucking names for these things. An Anbernic RG35XX SP 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting Edition.
Is
with
that your,
Dante from Devil May Cry and Funky Kong mode?
That sounds like somebody's randomized password.
It's oh shit! I just read my password. This is the
quick tangent. At work, whenever I have to change passwords for somebody, we were just using a randomizer just to give people a difficult password.
Sure.
And nobody could accurately put in these randomized passwords, so they were all writing them down, which completely defeated the purpose of security.
Yeah. And
one of the guys at work found a website called DinoPass, and it's a password generator for children. And so we all use DinoPass now. And so everybody has DinoPass passwords. And they're great. I love DinoPass. If you go to the website, it's like an adorable dinosaur telling you your password. It's great. Anyway, sorry.
Well, I want to see what I get. Let's see what I get. All right. Lazy Silver 75.
I got Bad cute. Flower 90.
I always was a fan of ones that were sentences. You could just write a whole sentence about something really stupid that you would remember.
I just got Giant Hen 23.
I got the RG35XXSP.
Yes, sir.
Which is the RG35XX line, which was the competitor to the Miu Mini and Miu Plus from Anbernic, but it is the GBA-SP form factor version of that hardware.
Right.
And I ordered a silver one. And they sent me a silver one and a clear blue one. And I double-checked my order. I only paid for one. And I'm pretty sure it was... Because when I order stuff online, I pay with PayPal. Yeah. And because the Patreon goes into my PayPal is... When you send money to me, or I buy something, it says Retro Warriors Podcast.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, do they send me another one? Because, like, I'm a podcast? Because every now and then, like, I'll order something... And like I've had people include like a sticker or something, you know, and I think they probably just do it because it says podcast on it. But they used the same shipping label. They were two separate packages, and they used the same shipping label twice because when my mailman scanned it, he scanned the first one, handed it to me, and he goes to scan the second one, and he goes, "Oh, it's a duplicate number. That's weird." And in my head, I was going to be like, you shouldn't have mailed that then.
Right.
That's USPS should have bounced
for
that.
it.
Yeah, like, it should not have made it through the system
Too late now.
And so I was like, oh, that's weird. And I stuck my hand out and like, took, and I went inside. Sure enough, they accidentally sent me two of them. So I got two of these things.
Nice.
And I've been talking about it in the chat. And it is running I have a custom operating system on it called Mustard OS or MUOS as it's commonly referred to as.
Oh, that's mustard. I just kept seeing MUOS and in my mind it was MUOS.
And their latest update is their refried beans update. I don't know why all these handhelds have food related, like garlic OS, onion OS,
so
mustard OS, refried beans update.
That's bizarre.
And I want to say up front, Mustard OS is not nearly as friendly and slick and put together as Onion OS, but it's still pretty nice. Granted, on these little handhelds, like, what do you really need other than a list of games and access to RetroArch that runs functionally? I mean, that's really 90% of what you're after on this kind of device. What I love about it is I don't know any features that are on the stock OS because I booted it up once to make sure it worked, then took the card out and immediately quit using it So I didn't even attempt to use the stock OS. But in Mustard, you can set it so that when you close so it's got like magnets in the lid, which make it snap shut very nicely. The build quality is very nice. Definitely nicer build quality than the MiU, but at a much higher price tag. It should be, right? These are about $100. The Mini Plus is like 50, 60. So it's a higher price category, right? Okay. But when you close the lid, it turns the screen off, and Mustard OS will, if you don't touch it for 5 or 10 minutes, you can set it. It will it'll save your game and power off your OS. And you can set it so when you turn it back on, it goes right back into your game.
Nice.
And for these kind of devices, I really enjoy that ability to because stuff like this, I'm playing it when I'm like waiting at the dentist's office, sitting in line, waiting to pick my kid up at school. Times when it's like, hey, I've got like 8 minutes to kill and I want a thing. And like one time I was waiting on the dentist and I was playing my MiU Mini and they call my name and I'm like, okay, hold on. And I have to hold the power button to turn it off. And then I have to put it in my little clamshell case and like flip the clamshell case shut and then put it in my pocket before I get up and go back at the dentist's office, And it just kind of betrays the immediacy of the device a little bit. So I think that's what I wanted with this, was the idea that I can just play for a little bit, flip it shut. It'll sit there. If I open it before it powers off, it just keeps on going, or it'll save my game. Nice. But the other reason I wanted this is this device supports Portmaster. And Portmaster is some kind of software layer or technology that allows Linux ports of games to be ported to these SBCs that are inside these little tiny machines.
And when you first mentioned this in the chat, I thought it said Postmaster. and you had said something like you chose this device because of
right.
Portmaster.
My Postmaster General recommended it.
Yeah.
So
I was like, are you trying to say that like they wouldn't deliver the other one to you? And then I had to reread it a couple times, like, oh, he's talking about some other thing.
So I learned that there is a Portmaster port of Balatro, and the idea of tiny, itty-bitty, portable Balatro was too much to pass up.
Now, Balatro doesn't have a native Linux port, does it?
I don't know. Maybe it is.
I've been doing the Proton version.
Oh, yeah. I said Linux ports, but, now that come to think of it, they are Windows versions. So it takes Windows versions and ports them over.
Nice.
To effectively SBC Linux, which is because I just realized, I got all my files and executables off of Windows. So I don't know how this black magic works,
right?
But I've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge, Balatro, and Stardew Valley running on it via Portmaster, playable, usable. I even moved my saves over.
That's nice.
And it's awesome. My only complaint is Portmaster ports do not support they don't have save states because they can't save their state because they're not a ROM running through RetroArch. So when you close the lid, they just kind of run indefinitely until you either open it up and close the game or whatever. But it still turns the screen off. So theoretically, it would save a good amount of battery because usually on these devices, it's the screen that's eating up most of your battery.
Right.
But Portmaster has been really cool. Some ports expect things like joysticks and things, and they don't work great. But there's a lot of like community ports of things, like all the Sonic Sega Master System remakes are there. There's the Apotris is there. You just load up Portmaster, and as long as it's not a port that requires additional files, like a game you got to pay for, like Stardew Valley, then it just installs straight in Portmaster like a package manager on the device.
That's really slick.
It is so nice. I've been really enjoying it. It's just cool. It's just cool to have tiny little Balatro that because I carry a purse. Like it's not a purse, but I call it a purse because that's what I use it for, because I need something to put my shit in, right? Because I've got like my phone and a granola bar and my keys and my headphones, and my phone's gigantic, and I got my wallet, and then I got my key for the other car.
I like before you mention your wallet or your keys, you mentioned granola bar. Like
that's important.
When you're leaving the house, the first things you think is phone, granola bar, got it. Wait, need keys.
I think some of it comes from having a child. is I'm never anywhere without food and water anymore. Like I got a water bottle and I got food with me, and I can just stick it in my purse and it just goes with me, and it's tiny and it's out of the way. Okay. I also like that I don't need to have a case for it. Like the outside will probably get scratched up or whatever, but it's nice to not have an extra accessory to have to keep up with it. Fair. I've been playing some ROMs on it. It plays ROMs great. Pokemon Crystal Clear, I've moved my save over. I've been continuing that. Because I got 2 of them, one of them kind of became my daughter's.
Nice.
And we tried out NetPlay, RetroArch NetPlay, because they have Wi-Fi and they can connect to each other on local network. And we played through a bunch of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4. We played a bunch of Samurai Showdown 5 Special, which is her favorite fighting game.
Nice.
Because she plays as Kusurigedo and just beats the shit out of me. And I have to say, like, local NetPlay on RetroArch worked great.
Nice.
Even in fighting games, I noticed no anything out of the ordinary. Like, it was like we were local.
Nice.
It is a little fussy because, like, some cores do and don't support NetPlay, so there's a little bit of RetroArch fussiness. But you know, RetroArch always has a little bit of fussiness. But I'm really impressed with the device. I've been having a good time with it. Portmaster is intensely impressive. Kind of impressive to the point that I want to get a bigger handheld with joysticks to play even more Portmaster ports.
Right.
Because there's stuff like, there's a Fallout 1 port, but you need a joystick to move the mouse because it's a mouse game. And in my head, I'm like, Justin, you have multiple computers in your house. You can just play Fallout. You have a Steam Deck. You can play Fallout on anything. But I'm like, yeah, but I could get it on a weird specialty emulation handheld.
I understand that urge.
I don't know why that's exciting to me.
Right.
But yeah, I really like the device. It's about $100. I think my assessment was, because there was some fiddling, right, to get it all set up right. One, I didn't like the RetroArch defaults, but I would say going into any of these emulation devices, be comfortable with RetroArch. I would really say to anyone that's interested in emulation, like, literally just sit down for a day and pull up a YouTube video and learn RetroArch. It's really worth it because it is kind of the foundation of pretty much
everything these days.
90% of emulation. Like, I mean, outside of like Dolphin and Flycast and a few standalones, like, yeah, it's RetroArch. And if you want to do emulation, you really got to learn it. And it's a little weird. Just out the gate, it's kind of weird to figure out.
But it's easier than a lot of the older ones that it has replaced.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
but once you learn it, like, if you learn RetroArch on Windows, then when you get RetroArch on one of these little emulation handhelds, it's the same RetroArch. Yeah. Like, you already know how to do it. You're like, I figured the shit out. I know what non-screen overlay is, how that works. I know how shaders work. I know how to add cheats. I know how to load cores. Like, but like, as far as pick up and play friendliness, this device is a little less friendly just because Onion OS is so friendly.
Right.
But if you're okay kind of tinkering a little bit, this thing's really cool. I'm very impressed with this device. Nice. I've done up to PSP on it, which runs a little choppy. I would say, like, you could probably do some PSP JRPGs, and that's kind of as far as you're taking this thing.
Yeah.
Also, it'll do Dreamcast. I did Crazy Taxi, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 does those just fine. All your 8 and 16 bits are covered. Neo Geo Pocket Color, which is a weirdly difficult system to emulate, runs great. It's been nice. Also, I've seen a lot of devices that do this, but it has 2 SD card slots, which seemed like the dumbest thing. I was like, why do I need 2 SD card slots? But I kind of love it because there's a file browser built into MuOS. So I took my Miiu Mini SD card and I put it in the second one and just moved my save for Pokemon Crystal over in the file browser, and then just kept playing that way. And when I need to move it back, I'll take it out of my Miiu and I'll stick it in there. I'll move it back over, and then I'll put it back in my Miiu Mini. And then, it's surprisingly had a lot of function having 2 SD card slots.
Nice.
Which I didn't think would be a thing I ever wanted, and I thought was a stupid thing, and then it's great. And unlike the actual Game Boy Advance SP, it has a headphone jack.
Oh.
Which is, I know.
You don't have to use a weird dongle that
I don't
prevents
need
you
a
from
dongle.
charging it?
No, I don't need a dongle
Weird.
at all. But it's, so I would say if you're in the market for like an SP, it's very comfortable too, because for a lot of people, I think, maybe have fond memories of the SP but haven't used one in a long time. For adult hands, it can be a little small.
True.
And this thing is just enough bulkier. Like, it's not dramatically bigger, but it's a good chunk thicker and a little wider, and the buttons are a little bigger. It's just bigger enough that it's the level of comfort that I remember the SP being when I was using it with, like, kid hands, when I was like 13 using it. Now
I never had an SP as a kid because it came out when I was already an adult, so I only ever know how it worked with my adult hands, and it was fine.
So my man hands find it more comfortable than the actual SP proper. So I've just been having a good time kind of playing around with that. And it's I continue to be fascinated by the world of weird emulation handhelds and how insane that I'm playing Balatro on it. Like, what the fuck? That's wild, man.
That's awesome.
And the thing, because it really is a port because they have to scale it down because the screen's like 4 inches. And so, like, they have to change the font. They remove some animations. It really is ported. Nice. And it uses the Balatro files, but it's full Balatro. Like, it's insane. It's totally insane to me. And so yeah, it's now my tiny Balatro that I can always have on me. Saturn, I never have to be out without Balatro. And in my head, I was like, if only there was a Vampire Survivors port, I could just never need anything else ever.
You'd never need your Steam Deck again.
No, I would just need my RG35XX and that's it. And that's all I need. Just that and this lamp. So yeah, I've been playing around with one of those. What have you been doing this week, Saturn? What's going on with you?
I had tried to order a controller on the Amazons, I lost it.
I get 2 of a thing the same week that Amazon just fucking loses your whole package.
Yeah, they finally messaged me like right as we started recording this episode to say, it looks like we can't find your package. If you want a refund, you just have to request it.
And so, if you want one.
I requested the refund, and they immediately issued the refund, and the tracking was immediately updated to customer refused delivery.
Of course.
But yeah, it was so it was supposed to be the Polymega's controller for the PC Engine, the 6-button pad they put out.
Okay, yeah.
Which I had heard some surprisingly good reviews of recently.
All right.
And I was
a
like,
good PC Engine pad is hard to come by.
Right?
So totally,
I'll take a good 6-button PC Engine pad. I'm curious how that is. But I'll never know because it did not arrive. Instead, I did try out a demo on Steam while I was at work the other day for a game called Pacaret Down the Bunburrows.
Okay.
You would hate this game because it's a Sokoban.
Is it weird that from the title I was like, I hate this game? Like, is that weird?
Yes, yes it is. It's an adorable game about a little girl who chases rabbits.
Okay.
And that's basically the entire objective, though it sounds like maybe something weird or dark is going to happen at some point, but it still looks cutesy enough that I don't think it'll get that dark.
Yeah.
But it's basically Sokoban, but instead of you pushing blocks, you're chasing rabbits. So just like in Sokoban, nothing moves unless you move. Mm-hmm. And the rabbits move based on your position. So if you get close enough to them and you are within their line of sight, then they sprint the opposite direction by a couple of spaces. Yeah. So you kind of have to like trick them into running into a dead end so that you can go capture them. And it's cute and it's neat and it's definitely Sokoban. So it's a lot of just orientation and spacing puzzles.
Yeah.
But I dig it. I'm enjoying it. Also, last week on my day off, I had one day off last week, and I thought, I need to do something that will let me unwind from work. Why don't I install Arch Linux? And so I got out
I have very different opinions. You know what? I take it back. I install Linux as a hobby too. I have no fucking room to talk here.
Right. So I pulled out my old laptop because I didn't want to put it on my new laptop because Mint is finally working great on there. I'm very happy with it. And I didn't want to put it on my desktop because I need Windows to get to Game Pass and whatever.
Sure.
So I was like, all right, well, I'll put it on my old laptop. And I had forgotten that I still had 3 hard drives in my old laptop. So during the setup process, which first of all, the last time I tried to install Arch had to have been more than 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not realize they still do not have any kind of installer or GUI for Arch at all.
So I was an early Arch adopter.
Uh-huh.
And at one point, it was very similar to Gen 2, except you didn't need to like merge the ports tree or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they added not really an installer, but just kind of a menu, like a graphical menu to just kind of, it did the same shit. It was just, like I said, typing commands. You pick some menu options. And it didn't really give you a full working system, but it gave you, there's a little bit of a menu. And people were fucking livid. I mean, like, leaving in droves, like, fuck this, I didn't come to Arch Linux for fucking menus. And you're like,
God.
What is happening right now?
These people.
Why are you mad?
So I go through the process of installing Arch, and the first thing you have to do is, create your partitions, right? Because it won't do that automatically. You have to do all the commands to create your partitions as if it's, 1983. And so I pull up the list of my drives, and it lists all these drives in this machine. It's like, oh shit, I forgot that I had this many drives in my computer. Well, I've not used this computer in a year. Clearly, I don't need the data off of it. I'm just gonna erase all the partitions off all these drives and just create new partitions on one of them and go from there.
Okay.
And so I do that. I delete all the partitions. I create the new partitions, and then when I get to the next step where I'm like telling it to start installing stuff, it's like, can't find the source. I'm like, fuck do you mean you can't find the source? And then I'm like, restart. I try to reboot to the disk, just start from scratch. And it's like, no bootable drive found. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then I realized that one of the drives that I wiped all the partitions from was the install USB.
So it loaded parted in memory, and then you wiped the drive it came from.
Correct. Yes. F-disk was able to erase itself. And I jumped back to the terminal that was like, I don't know what to do from here.
Linux, ultimate freedom.
So I start over. I create a new disk. I got Arch running. And instead of installing GNOME or KDE, I installed Cinnamon, because that's what I'm familiar with.
Sure.
And it's working great. I installed the NVIDIA drivers. Those are working great. I installed Steam. That's working great. Everything is working surprisingly well on this Arch build. To the point to where I'm confused by it and worried about what's going to break on me.
Right. Which like card in this house of cards is going to topple first? Yeah.
But so far, it seems to be working exceptionally well. I installed a theme on it, because this is the other thing I've been playing with while I've been at work this week, because I've had very little time to actually do anything fun because of how much work I've had, but I still have my personal laptop sitting there staring at me, so that while I'm like talking to people or while I'm waiting on a process to finish, I can just tinker with my laptop for a second. Yep. And so I've been playing with themes in Linux Mint, just in Cinnamon, just different ways to theme it and make it look different and make it look prettier. And that's become my life, is what new theme can I install today? Yeah. And the theme that I installed in my Arch Linux is called Dracula.
Oh.
And it's
all black and red?
No, it's all like gray and shades of gray. And it's really cute and adorable. But it's a dark mode theme specifically, but it's a really good one. And I was trying to figure out where it came from, and they have their own website at draculatheme.com.
Oh my God, I have to see this.
And they theme everything. Like, you can get a Notepad++ theme for it. You can get a Visual Studio theme for it. You can get Windows Terminal theme in Dracula.
This is amazing.
Yes, it's so nice. It's a really nice theme. I'm very happy with it. I'm tempted to put it on my Mint laptop, but I just got myself this really nice neon theme on Mint, and I don't want to bork that. Because it looks really cool.
They sell a pro version for $79 of this theme.
No, thank you. But yeah, it's mostly just been me dicking around in Linux and playing with themes this week.
Qubit torrent theme. They got everything here. Emacs, Xcode, Eclipse, iTerm, Visual Studio Code.
Oracle SQL servers, all of it.
Vim. I miss Vim. I still use it sometimes, but not very often. Well, cool.
Yeah.
You want to do some of that there news?
No.
All right. Never mind. Show's over. Let's clean together. Bye. See you later.
That's how we end things here.
We're going to do the news. First up, fan mods have restored the online functionality to the PC port of Sega's Outrun 2006, which is a beloved version of Outrun. People very much enjoy this. I don't know that I've played this version, but I have seen it mentioned many times.
I forgot that it even got a PC port. I had tried it on Xbox and was like, that's Outrun, and then never tried it again.
Yeah. I've seen this one floating around as like just a good game, good version.
Yeah, I always hear that. I'm just
up.
not that interested in that kind of racing game, so I didn't bother.
Yeah.
But
cool.
Yeah.
Microsoft has agreed to sell Tango Gameworks to PUBG's publisher, Krafton. The sale will...
Krafton?
Krafton. Krafton? Krafton. The sale
the crafter.
The sale will include employment contracts for Tango staff as well as the IP rights to Hi-Fi Rush. So I guess they're giving that the fuck up.
However, Microsoft said they are keeping all of Tango Gameworks' other works. So things like Evil Within will remain within Bethesda.
Yeah.
Whereas Hi-Fi Rush is leaving to stay with Tango Gameworks, which is neat for all the people who are big fans of it and we're hoping for a sequel.
Yeah.
Now, because they were previously saying they were just going to shut down Tango Gameworks and shit can everybody.
Yeah.
But now those people get to remain employed, which is nice.
That is nice. Hopefully, Krafton or Krafton is nice to them.
Yeah.
A Philips CDI core is being added to the Mister. So if you have a Mister, you can wish you didn't.
Enjoy all those great CDI games like.
There are no redeeming CDI games. And if you think you like them, then you should see a professional about the Stockholm Syndrome you clearly have. God damn it. A goldfish beat Elden Ring's DLC. I can't beat the first fucking boss, but a goldfish beat the newest DLC.
Yeah, that's we're being replaced by goldfish, Justin.
I love that stupid shit like this still gets to happen.
Right.
It's kind of like the one highlight in the dreariness of like game industry news and closures and layoffs and shit we always hear is like, yeah, Goldfish beat Pokemon Red. You're like, awesome. I love that. We've got like Goldfish beating games, GDQ, and like internet video essays about game design. That's all we got left.
And I'm trying to remember if it was in the story that I posted or not. Oh, it is. Yeah. Apparently, previously, when the guy gave his goldfish ability to control his computer to try to play a game, it instead bought a bunch of shit with his credit card. So this time it beat Elden Ring and it did not commit credit card fraud. So
I wonder if he gives it a little reward. Does he get like a special treat?
I don't know.
I mean, it should. It should get one for beating Elden Ring's DLC, I think. A playable proof of concept for the Sega Saturn port of Crash Bandicoot has been shown off. So, cool.
So if you're a big Crash fan but really hate the PlayStation.
Or the remake of the game.
Yeah. You really hate everything since then.
If you are a huge Crash fan but insist that everything must be played on your original Sega Saturn hardware, then swap trick this disc into your Saturn, buddy. SteamOS is coming to the ROG Ally, which is good. This is good for the industry. This is the good work that we want to see Valve continuing to do.
It sounds like it'll probably be a dual boot device that it comes to first, which is fine. You know?
Like just making SteamOS available. SteamOS has moved Linux gaming forward in leaps and bounds since it has come out. We're still all kind of waiting on the PC, friendly version of it that anyone can install. We're still stuck on SteamOS 2. I'm excited that they're still moving forward with this. This is a net good for the industry that other people can release other devices that run a handheld OS, a handheld PC OS that's as slick as SteamOS.
Right.
So this is very exciting news. I'm perpetually nervous that Valve is going to be like, you know what? Fuck all that good shit we do. Like I have my problems with Valve of like, why are you still selling Team Fortress 2 hats? And I think Counter-Strike is just a money laundering scheme. Like I have concerns. But also, where the fuck's Half-Life 3? Like, I have concerns. But also, a lot of
supposedly Half-Life 3 is in development now. Some leaks said that some people look like they were credited with voice work on it.
I will believe that when I can purchase it.
Yep.
So, they still seem to do a lot of things that are helpful to the industry.
Right. Which is nice. For now.
Which is not, as long as they're a private company, they'll hopefully continue to do that. As soon as they go public, I don't know what the fuck we're going to do.
Just fear.
Just fear. Silent Hill Ascension has won an Emmy for Outstanding Innovation in Emerging Media Programming. What does that sentence mean?
Okay, so...
emerging media programming?
For people who don't remember, Silent Hill Ascension was a train wreck that is basically...
wasn't this shitty ARG or something? What the fuck is this?
It's a mobile app that shows clips from a TV show that people vote on what will happen in the next episode.
I remember this now, yes.
And it won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Innovation.
Well, no, Outstanding Innovation in Emerging Media Programming,
yes.
which is a nonsense category.
Yes.
What does this mean?
But apparently it is a category in the Emmys now.
What is emerging about this type of media programming?
I don't know. I don't
Forget it. Forget it. This should just read the Emmys continue to vie for relevancy. Like that's what this should read as.
Also, Silent Hill Ascension got way more credit than it deserves. That could have been the headline.
Oh yeah, that too. A collector in Saudi Arabia has won a Guinness World Record for connecting 444 game consoles to a single TV. I know that Guinness World Records are already kind of like bogus. It's just like a goofy thing to release every year that they make money off of selling the books or whatever. But when the only thing standing between you and a record is how much money you're willing to throw at it, I don't feel like that should be a record.
Right.
Like, I feel like the guy that's like, I can afford enough game consoles and connection and splitter boxes to hook them all up to the same TV, put in distinctly less effort than the guy that grew his fingernails for 50 years. you know what I mean? Like, one of these guys, I'm like, all right, yeah. Another one, I'm like, you just kind of threw money at that dude.
I do like that GameStop's response tweet to this story was, we'll give him $20 in store credit.
Always with the self-aware marketing. Good job.
I gotta say,
good job, GameStop.
Whatever intern at GameStop made that post, I bet they're not hired there anymore. I bet.
I guarantee you, it was strategic, talked about, and celebrated as a marketing maneuver.
Because that is just the worst marketing for GameStop right there. That is.
If we're talking about it.
Yeah, we're talking about how horrible they are.
Sure, but we're talking about no publicity is bad publicity, Saturn.
Oh, I see.
Right? WayForward has announced retro with an EA UX platformers based on John Carpenter's Halloween and Ash vs. Evil Dead. Crossover content is available to people who buy both games. I'm sure. All right. Awesome. Like,
right?
Halloween's cool. I like Ash versus Evil Dead. Let's fucking party, man. Let's see what's up. If this was anyone but WayForward, I'd be like, this is going to be trash. But because it's WayForward, I'm like, maybe it'll be fun. Diablo 1 is now playable within a browser thanks to the open source Devolution X engine, now apparently being able to be run in a browser.
Technically, you could run it in a browser previously because of that one website that lets you run Windows 95 in a browser.
True, but any more publicity that Devolution X can get, it deserves, because it's a good project, and I want them to make one for Diablo 2 so that I can have an open source port of Diablo 2, please. Thank you. You just email me that when it's ready. I'll play it.
We'll just hand it off to the postmaster and have him deliver it to you.
Crystal Dynamics is releasing a combo cart of Blood Omen Legacy of Kain and Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver for the Evercade.
That's fine. You know,
this is fucking. This, first of all, is this the first cartridge release of these games?
I believe so. Yeah.
So that's weird.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't know the Evercade was capable of that kind of that high of a level of gameplay.
My question is it emulations of the PS1 versions or is it emulations of the PC versions?
Also, isn't this now the only way to get these games? Because weren't they pulled?
I think they're still on Steam, aren't they?
I don't know. I thought that they had been. All right, let me look. Blood Omen. Okay, so Blood Omen 2 Legacy of Kain is there.
Yeah. Only the later games are there, not those. Dang.
Yeah, so the only way to get them is on cartridge on an Evercade.
Oof.
How fucking weird is that?
There was a supposed leak a little while back from one of Crystal Dynamics' appearances at a trade show where one of their things that they had was labeled as Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remaster. So there's a good chance that those may be coming around somewhere soon.
Yeah.
But for now, you can play them on Evercade.
I don't even love the games, but I kind of want to get them just because this is such a weird fucking release.
You can still get Blood Omen on GOG.
That's the one that I can't get to fucking work. No, that was Soul Reaver.
Get Soul Reaver on GOG.
This is
Soul
weird
Reaver 2,
as hell.
but not Soul Reaver 1.
Like, I want to get it just because this is so fucking weird, and I want to see if it runs on my Evercade portable. It's just
You have
so
it
bizarre.
Oh, that's right. You do have it.
Yeah, I got the portable one. Yeah.
Right.
I had it purchased before the rest of the shipment was allegedly stolen, and now they're really hard to find, apparently.
Well, there's also those other portables that play Evercade games, like the ones that Atari and Taito licensed.
The FF9 Upscale Fan Mod got a massive new update featuring 120 FPS, ultra-wide support, and newly upscaled backgrounds. Also features the option to play FF8's card game instead of FF9's card game, or a hybrid of the two, but no word on if they're going to make Zidane less fucking creepy.
No,
he's creepy in that game.
He gets to be just as creepy as ever.
But it's exciting to see that the fan communities are doing the work that Square Enix will not.
I don't know. There's that rumored FF9 remake that's been hinted for years now.
Yeah, sure. There's also the rumored Android port of Final Fantasy XI, but we'll fucking see it when we see it, I guess. Oh, did they finally cancel that one?
Yeah, they proper canceled that.
Oh, I see.
However, a Chinese company has secured the license to release a Android port of Final Fantasy XIV.
God, what planet are we on?
But it's a legit port that plays the online game.
This is also weird.
Yes.
I don't know what to think anymore.
Right?
Which brings us to our topic at hand, which is Romhacking 101, which is
I don't know what to think anymore is a good way to bring us to this topic at hand.
Synopsis. Where will we download our Wilford Brimley-based ROM hacks from now?
Oh, no.
We've had a ROM hack episode before. It was ROM Hack Roundup, and we were going to do a ROM Hack Roundup too, but we just didn't have the time to play a bunch of ROM hacks because
we've actually had 2 other episodes about ROM hacks.
Have we?
Yeah.
What was the other one?
I found it the other day. Let me find it again.
Oh no! Now I'm worried that we've done this episode before, Saturn.
Yeah, we did. ROM hacks was episode 91. ROM Hack Roundup was 391, and and then this episode. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully we don't retread too much ground.
I like that we somehow accidentally chose 2 topics that we've done twice before.
See, now I'm all nervous about it. What was the other? So I know we did the roundup. What was the other one?
It was just called ROM hacks. That's all it says.
Oh.
And that was,
what number was
back
that?
In April of 2017.
Oh, what number was that? Like
That's episode 91.
That long ago. It's not even on our website. Yeah. It's going to be like way, way old. I'm like panic pulled up. We're just gonna rehash everything.
It's not like we have notes for episodes that old anyway.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is I kind of wanted to do this episode to talk about. First of all, we want to address the romhacking.net drama, which is currently going on. But also, I just want to talk about ROM hacks, how they work, how to do them, kind of introduce people to it. Because if you have not explored ROM hacks, you need to. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important. And I think if you don't explore them soon, a lot of them may not be available for reasons we're about to mention.
Or at least not easily available.
And we probably don't need to go through our first encounters of ROM hacks. We probably did that on our other 2 ROM hacking episodes that allegedly we did. That I don't know if I believe, but, who knows? It was 100 episodes ago. But I do want to talk about the current state of romhacking.net. We first reported on this a couple of episodes ago. Romhacking.net basically came out and said, hey, Nightcrawler, the owner of the site, came out and said, hey, we're shutting the site down. It's going into read-only mode. We are no longer taking submissions. Thank you, but no thank you. Goodbye. The website has become too expensive to keep up, and I have been doxxed by people on the internet. And so the immediate reaction was, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But if you can't afford it and people are attacking you, then that's terrible. Right. You should not continue engaging in that situation. And then the immediate backlash to that was basically literally no one backing up this narrative. So Nightcrawler has been an admin on the romhacking.net. He's been the owner of romhacking.net the whole time. They, I don't actually know their pronoun, but they have been the owner of romhacking.net this whole time and have been relatively absent. They just kind of like have the site and other people sort of kind of run things.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, other people also pay for most of, if not all of the hosting costs. And so the admins and the mods at the site all came out to be like, from there in the Discord, to be like, hey, what are you talking about? No one has doxed you, but no one can ever get a hold of you. When shit goes down, it's down for a long time because you're sort of absent, right?
Yeah, the supposed doxing was just somebody saying, hey, does anybody have his email address so we can get in touch with him? That's right. That's what the story everyone else is saying at this point.
Now, we're not here to play he said, she said, right? This is internet drama at its finest, the likes of which we haven't seen in a while.
I wish we could have gone longer.
But we have gotten some data and some information. The person that runs the cutting room floor has come out and they've been like, hey, I was, involved with romhacking.net. None of this is backed up by any form of reality that we've experienced. And then they shared very specific information about like, hey, this is how much it costs us,
finances and bandwidth and stuff.
Yeah, to run and host TCRF, which is a much bigger website. Yeah. Because Nightcrawler also said, and we reported on this, here's a dump of all that ROM hacks off of the website on archive.org, which is problematic for a few reasons. First of all, archive.org is constantly under fire. If it were up to a lot of companies, they would be taken offline, and it's a constant battle that they stay online. Yep. So they're an endangered resource and have been for years now.
Yeah.
Also, I downloaded the archive. First of all, the entire archive of apparently all the ROM hacks and patches on the site is 13 gigabytes. And they're not sorted in any meaningful way.
Yeah, or labeled properly.
Yeah, it's just, here's all the files from the Sega Genesis section. And it's not separated by like translations or more importantly, the games they are hacks of, because you have to apply the patch to a specific game.
Yep.
And so it's kind of a shit show. It's kind of a problem. Yeah. A lot of romhacking.net staff and admins and stuff are getting banned from the site. It's a dumpster fire. Yeah. And so this episode is to introduce you, the listener, to what ROM hacks are, which we've talked about on our roundup episode at least. But to kind of explain how they work, how to do them, and sort of get you up to speed, because if you're not hacking your ROMs, you need to be hacking your ROMs, because there's some really cool shit out there, right? Romhacking.net is currently up.
For now.
But apparently on August 20th, which is 5 days from now, the staff has confirmed that their AWS S3 bucket will be taken offline. So that means things hosted there will be non-downloadable. So basically, when this goes live,
by the time this goes live,
it's gone. So what I would encourage you to do if you're interested in this is find the archive.org or come in our Discord and ask us. We'll send you to it. Like, it's publicly available. It's not illegal to download ROM hacks. It's not even a legal gray area. Like, they modify ROMs, which are a legal gray area, but ROM hacks and patches and translations are 100% legal.
Yes.
We will send you to the archive so that you can get these hacks and patches. So I want to start with current useful resources for ROM hacks. The number one site used to be romhacking.net, which is the cause of all the drama right now. It is currently still the best repository for ROM hacks. Right. There have been some community efforts already. People are talking like, hey, how can we mirror this? How can we have our own site? How can we start something new? But that's going to take time. There's nothing definitive. Grab what you can while you can. Really do. Because especially
people are already working on it.
Yeah. There is romhacks.org, which is a useful site for finding and downloading ROM hacks. It is definitely the lesser site. It does not have 20 years of data and hacks and patches and translations and community efforts gone into it, but it still exists. Another useful website is the Big List of Video Game Randomizers, which if you just Google Big List of Video Game Randomizers, because I do kind of include randomizers in this list as they're hacks,
ROM
hacks after a fashion. That's a big, giant list of all the different randomizers that exist out there to make randomized ROM hacks for you. Unfortunately, with romhacking.net shutting down, a lot of these ROM hacks are going to be relegated to individual hosting, which is going to make the entire thing extremely diffuse.
I would like to note, you just said a moment ago that romhacking.org was still available.
Romhacks.org.
Yeah, it's changed. It is no longer romhacks.org.
Oh, no. What happened?
It is now romhackplaza.org. I don't know why the name changed, but it has. So
How strange.
I don't know how long the old address will still work. So that is the new address for it. That's
interesting.
how you
I guess I didn't realize I was getting redirected when I go to it, and I didn't realize they changed their thing.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, anyway, really, romhacking.net has been the definitive source for so much of this for so long.
Much.
So before we get into how to hack a ROM and what ROM hacking is all about, we're going to break down the types of ROM hacks, which these categories are taken from romhacking.net. And this is how they break them down. The first and probably, I would say, has to be the most sought after type is translations.
Yeah.
These are
early on.
These are ROM hacks that all they do is it's a fan translation of a game into a different language.
Right.
Examples are Final Fantasy V, Ys 4, Shining Force 3 is a big popular one. Rondo of Blood got a translation. Pretty much every Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy spin-off and main game, even if they were brought to international markets eventually, were usually very often fan translated before they came out in the States.
Yep. And,
So you can... Go ahead.
The early ones that I remember being huge deals were Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy II, and Seiken Densetsu 3. Those were the ones that were just massive in the late 90s. Like, I can't believe we were able to actually translate this and make it work. Final Fantasy V especially was a really early fan translation for how polished it was compared to games at the time. And also, I wanted to make sure to note Ys 4 because that's one of the first fan translations I ever saw that had voice acting.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's not like professional grade voice acting, but neither were any official releases on TurboGrafx.
What did have professional grade voice acting in video games at that era?
Yeah, so it compared to other Turbo CD games, it sounds pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So it's there's some good ones out there.
There's improvements, which are basically every Pokemon ROM hack ever is treated as an improvement. Lately, we've been getting really cool DX ROM hacks, basically Game Boy Color versions of Game Boy games. Super Mario Land 2, Kirby's Dream Land got a DX ROM hack.
Yep.
Simon's Quest Redacted is a very famous one. Just lots and lots and lots of little improvements. A lot of times when we play games for the show, I'll mention that I played a ROM hack version. Right. And a lot of them are so subtle. It's just little fixes. It's things that like fix bugs or like bad inventory design or UI stuff. Like one of my favorite things that almost every Pokemon ROM hack fixes is when you go to the Poke Center, you walk up to Nurse Joy and you have to, she's like, hey, welcome to the Poke Center. Do you want to heal your Pokemon? And you have to say yes. And they remove that dialogue and you just walk up and hit a button and she just heals your Pokemon and you walk away. Just little improvements like this. Can make all the difference, and these are my favorite type of ROM hack. Basically, I consider them fixes. They're fixed versions of games.
Right. And I remember you had like 4 different improvements on Faxanadu, and you still couldn't appreciate it.
I still did not. Yeah.
You're wrong.
Yeah. There's conversions. These are basically using original ROMs as kind of toolkits to make a totally new game. Again, lots of Pokemon stuff in this category. Zelda 3 Parallel Worlds, Final Fantasy 7 Advent Children, which is the NES game.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of Kaizo games, all sorts of really bizarre, weird stuff. A lot of people use original games as just sort of springboards to make their own new entire games on top of things. And it's just fascinating stuff to see. And then there's randomizers, which is really kind of a utility that creates a ROM hack, but, tomato at that point.
Tomato did the Mother 3 translation.
Oh, I see. Right. Yes. Right. Tomato did the randomizers then. His evil twin. So let's talk about...
I appreciate randomizers, and I appreciate that the success of randomizers has led to a lot of companies adding randomizers into their games, and that's neat to me.
I've
not that started it, because Resident Evil 2 on N64 had a randomizer built into it.
I've never been a randomizer person, but I'm also not a hardcore like play the same game over and over and over kind of person.
Yeah.
And I know you are, and for
am.
people like that, absolutely randomizers are awesome. So let's talk about how you go about hacking a ROM, because it can sound really intimidating. There's a lot of discussion about fancy technical computer terms.
Yeah, first you need an axe.
No, don't obtain an axe.
You need a golden axe and a silver axe.
I was playing Axe Battler the other day on Game Gear on my RG35XXSP, and was once again upset that the game is called The Legend of Axe Battler and he uses a sword. Come on. After you find a ROM hack that you want to try, you're going to download the patch file. A patch file is usually going to end in IPS or UPS.
Yeah, usually.
And while there are some technical differences between these two formats, either one will work fine for the purposes of patching. You don't need to know the reasons that they've chosen this format over that format. You just need to know it'll be like, name of ROM hack.ips or .ups. IPS is definitely the most prominent one.
Which one?
IPS is the one I usually see the most. Yeah.
You also see BPS every now and then?
Sometimes, yeah. So there's a few different files, but it's going to be a file. Usually it'll include a README that will be the changes. It'll be a list of like, hey, these are the changes. And in that README file, first of all, read it, because that's why it's called README.
Yeah.
And it will also tell you which version of the game that it works with.
Yeah, and also every now and then you're going to find a weird patch in a weird format like X Delta or something. And those may require a specialty tool. So please read the README.
It is important to note that because I think a lot of people don't know this. Most game ROMs, so like Mario 3, there's actually a lot of different versions of Mario 3 that were flashed onto these cartridges as the games came out. Because I know we always have the joke of like, oh, we didn't have patches for games back in the day. They just released it. Like, nah, they patched them.
Yeah, and even then, even for games that didn't have a bunch of patches, there's, especially for older games, there were like 30 different devices that could have ripped the games from the cartridge to your computer, and they might format it slightly differently, or they might put a header file on there or something. So you have to make sure you have the byte for byte correct version of the ROM.
Yeah. So whenever you've got your Mario 3.NES ROM that you've legally backed up from your physical cartridge of Mario 3 with your officially sanctioned cartridge backup device or whatever you fucking got.
Yeah.
You need to figure out which version of the game that you have.
Yes.
Some games have revisions for, again, specific reasons like removing or adding DRM or patching in or out content. Yep. But sometimes also different versions from different regions. So a ROM hack, a patch will say like, hey, this is for the Japanese ROM version A, and then they're going to give you a hash, which is scary to people that don't know what a hash is.
Right.
Because a hash is basically just a big, giant, long series of numbers and letters. And you're like, what the fuck do I do with this fucking thing? They'll say, here's an MD5 hash of the ROM you need.
Right.
So here's what a hash is. A hash is a mathematical black box that you put data into, and it does a thing to it, and then you get data out. And as long as you always put the same thing in, you'll always get the same thing out. That's
that
how
sounded
it works.
way complicated. Let me try again.
Think you can dumb it down? All right.
Yeah. A hash is your file's fingerprint.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's good.
I have to explain tech stuff to people all day at work, so I've learned a lot of use things.
All right, I like this.
Your hash is basically your file's fingerprint, and somebody can tell you what the fingerprint should be, and then you can use a program like MD5 to read what your file's fingerprint is, and the better ones will give you a place to paste in what it should be, and then it'll read what it is, and it'll tell you whether or not it's an exact match or if something's wrong.
Right. And basically,
that way you know if you have the right file.
All this is telling you whether or not you do or don't have the correct ROM file.
Correct.
because you might have a version that is a headered ROM, which has some additional data. Yep. It might be from a different set. It could be a different revision. Maybe you have the US version of the game and you needed the Japanese version of the game in ROM format.
And if you're looking at really, really old ROM patches, especially the ones that were for CD games, like early CD games, like Sega CD or Turbo CD or early PS1 games, some of those are in a format where the actual file name has to be the same too.
Yeah.
So in addition to it passing your fingerprint test, you also have to then rename the file to exactly what it expects.
And if the README says that, it'll say that. And if it doesn't, you probably don't need to. But all this to say that once you've deduced the hash of your ROM, and you've determined that the hash of your ROM matches the hash of the ROM that it expects. And sometimes they don't include hashes. They're just like Japanese version. You're like, oh. And the tricky thing with ROM hacks is that if you patch the incorrect version of the ROM with a ROM hack, many times it'll work.
Yeah, sometimes it'll load.
But not right.
Yeah, it'll be weird.
It'll be all fucked up. And that's how you know you probably got the wrong version of the game. So once you got the right version of the game, and you've matched it up with a hash that it says in the README that you need, then and again, like you were saying, most patcher programs will display a hash of a given ROM. So when you open a patching program to patch your ROM, which we're getting to next, and you upload your file, it's going to say, here's the hash of that file you just uploaded, and you can look at the text file and go, yeah, it's the same. All right, good. And again, it all sounds like fancy hacker shit. It really is just upload your ROM to the file that you're going to open a program. It's going to say, where's your file? And you go, it's here. And it's going to go, all right, where's your patch? And you're going to go, it's here. And it's going to go, okay, do you want to patch it? And you go, yes.
It's so nice these days. When I messed with fan translations and ROM hacks the first time, everything was through DOS. It was all through the command line. So we had to type it all in manually. These days, you just open up Lunar IPS or whatever your patcher of choice is, and it's just got big buttons on there. Select file, select patch, patch. That's it.
Lunar IPS is a Windows executable. It's often also used for applying IPS patches due to how small and simple it is to run. It's kind of one of the more popular patching programs.
Right.
That one is hosted on romhacking.net, so hopefully they have hosting elsewhere.
They do. Yeah.
So that's hopefully still going to be floating around out there.
Yeah, Lunar IPS is a little older now. It hasn't gotten an update in a while. But there's also something called Flips, which is basically a newer version of Lunar IPS made by someone else.
Is that Flips with an S?
Yes,
okay.
FLIPS.
All right.
And in fact, it has a nearly identical icon to Lunar IPS.
Oh, the little moon from Super Mario World?
Yep.
Probably the easiest, most modern feeling way is there is a JavaScript called rompatcher.js, which many websites host. So it's basically just a website you go to. You upload your game ROM there, and it will show you the hash, let you verify it, and then you upload the patch directly there, and then it just spits the patched file out to your browser for downloading.
Nice. I haven't played with that.
And you're just ready to roll. Rompatcher.js is great because it gives you that hash immediately, and you're able to verify it as you're sitting there and know that it's correct.
Nice. You don't have to have a separate file to check your hash.
And I feel like we're spending a lot of time talking about hashes and making sure you have the right ROM file, probably because it's the most tedious part of this shit.
Correct.
Sometimes I'll have to go on the hunt for a ROM file for some time before I find it.
And some of my ROMs that I've had since the 90s. They've just transferred from floppy disk to hard drive to CD to hard drive to whatever. And they're old, and they do not match anybody's hash of anything anymore.
Yeah.
So then, if you want to get technical, there are tools that can convert one ROM into another format so that it suddenly matches the hash. So that's out there, but that's probably more than you need, because you can just go find the other ROM file instead.
So, again, to reiterate, this basic process is you found a ROM hack you want to try. Someone sent it to you. You downloaded it, whatever. I sent it to you because, again, they're totally legal to have and own and move around. And you want to patch it. So you open a website that has rompatcher.js. You upload your patch. You upload your ROM. If it's the wrong ROM, you go ask or search or find the right ROM, and then you hit the button, and then it just runs. Now, A big question I see a lot is always, can I use X ROM hack on Y hardware or emulator?
And sometimes. The answer is sometimes.
The answer is sometimes, and the answer is most of the time.
Usually.
A lot of the time. And
But not always.
if it cannot, or the ROM hack does things to the game that makes it so it's untenable for certain emulators or original hardware, usually you can go to that magical document, the README, and it'll say in there, like, doesn't work in Gambit, works in GBSP.
Right.
Doesn't work on original hardware, works in emulators. They'll tell you. You'll know ahead of time because you did the right thing and you read the README because it says README. That's why it says it.
What?
It really is as simple as, like, upload a file, get a patched ROM, and you're done. We entered difficult ground talking about obtaining ROMs. Mm-hmm. I've been on record as saying that you cannot steal from a corporation. You can only reclaim what should rightfully be yours.
Yeah.
I've also gone on record as saying that piracy is preservation.
That is true.
And
I agree with that.
I do believe these things. At the same time, I would never encourage anyone to commit any kind of crimes depending on the region that you're in.
Yeah.
But just as an aside of me providing information of what is publicly available and not hosted by me, some websites that archive things that have large archives often have not only ROMs, but there are also some collections of pre-patched ROM hacks and pre-patched fan translations.
Now, that said, also, if you have something like a hacked Wii or a hacked 3DS, there are utilities you can get for those that will extract the ROMs from your legally purchased Virtual Console games.
Yes, which, according to the law in the United States, is, I believe, still a legal gray area.
Right.
But not outright illegal. It is not against the law to do that. We do not know through the current laws whether or not it is or isn't if it were to be ruled upon. It's kind of one of those things.
It is assumed that it is a private backup so long as you do not distribute it, but it has not been tested.
Right. So it's possible that one day someone's going to go to court and the court's going to rule that, no, you cannot back up your own software. And that is a day where there will be much lamenting and
they've already ruled that you can back up your own software. The question is whether or not you can back up software that wasn't designed in such a way to allow for an easy backup.
Oh.
That's where our question is.
So basically, you still can for now, is what we're getting around to. In other countries, please consult your local laws, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's tricky business. But I do think it's important to kind of have this PSA of like, hey, romhacking.net is on fucking fire right now.
Yeah.
In fact, by the time this comes out, it will just be cinders.
Yeah. Which is so tragic.
You know, please check out ROM hacks. Check out the love that has been poured into 20 years of archiving this stuff. Right. I think what breaks my heart the most is a massive amount of the ROM hacks on romhacking.net aren't like, you know, like the big stuff, like the famous ones, like Wilford Brimley Battle and Seigen Densetsu 3 and Mother 3. Like, they're
going to... things is not like the other.
They're going to live on. The community will keep those maintained.
Yes.
But a huge amount of little ROM hacks that a guy made on one weekend because he was like, I'm going to put all the crosses back in Faxanadu, and then I downloaded it and played it. That guy probably hasn't even thought about that ROM hack in 15 years.
Yeah. And even if these things like the archive is out there, the owner of romhacking.net did upload his archive, but it's so fucked. It's just so messy and disorganized and impossible to parse that it might be years before we determine what all these things are and can find them again. Hopefully somebody is able to get a website up sooner than that, but we honestly don't know. And even if they could, we don't know the legality of posting these hacks without the author's permissions.
Yeah.
So it's a really frustrating point right now.
Yeah, and it could be one of those things where if we released this episode just a month later, it would be a much more positive message.
Possibly.
But I do believe in the community. I do believe that people actually care enough about preservation that they're going to preserve a lot of it. But I think that in the transition, a lot of little, tiny, one-shot, random ROM hacks that were uploaded 12 years ago have a chance of falling through the cracks and being kind of forgotten to time. Basically, a lot of work this community has done collectively as a community is potentially going to be lost. Again, the most famous examples, probably
fine.
They're still going to exist. Sure, Ease 4 fan translation with the voice acting, the fan hack of Rondo, again, Wilford Brimley battle, all the prominent, important ROM hacks.
I think this might be the only podcast that has ever referenced Wilford Brimley battle, ever. It's just our show. No one else in the world knows of it.
I need to go find whoever made Wilford Brimley battle while I still can and send them a message and be like, we've talked about your ROM on like 3 episodes of our podcast. Thank you for creating
3.
Wilford Brimley battle. Which, for people that don't know, is a hack of River City Ransom in which you play Wilford Brimley beating the shit out of street punks.
Yeah.
As they shout barf and mother. All this to say, kind of final thoughts here. If you're not ROM hacking, you should be ROM hacking. There's a lot of ROM hacks out there, and you should hack your ROMs. And it's really, really fun and cool. And I think, we talked today about nostalgia in the Discord. And I was kind of lamenting the fact that I kind of have grown to really hate nostalgia. It's often wielded as a cudgel by corporations. It's often something that ends up being disappointing. See last episode of this very podcast. It's not to say that I don't like old things, that I don't like revisiting things, but I think that sometimes nostalgia can make things difficult.
Fair.
And I think ROM hacks, for me, a lot of the time, can make something the way I remember it. If that makes sense. They can take something that otherwise I would have looked at the same way that like mods on PC games and stuff that I might have looked at now and been like, oh, you know what? Yeah, that game does kind of suck now that I'm playing it, with 2024 eyes. Right. And they can put in those little tiny fixes that turn it into something that matches with my nostalgia. Yeah. Because that's the thing is in our heads, nostalgia never changes. Whatever we're remembering is always the same. And then the second you touch it, it changes. It's different now because you're different. But much like my RG35XXSP being comfortable the way I remember my GBASP being, a lot of these older games can be made to be the way I remember them being, and then I can ride that wave. And it's exciting when I get to, I guess is my point. And I think in addition to being able to experience new games like Terranigma that were never brought out in your region, and experience totally new games and conversions that people have created, it's being able to have that bit of nostalgia in a way that doesn't end up kind of shattering its own illusion is extremely valuable, So please
and
go
also
hack
take some of
ROMs.
these classic games and makes them more accessible for new audiences, because even beyond the nostalgia, there's the importance of what they might have done for the medium or the genre or whatever, that can be lost on newer audiences. It's I think I read it as the Seinfeld effect one time, where in the 90s everybody thought Seinfeld was funny and fresh, and anybody going back and looking now is like, these are really dry, tame jokes. And it's the same thing with a lot of these older games. Like younger people who didn't experience the 8-bit or 16-bit era might see the original Super Mario Brothers and be like, so you move forward and jump and you can't even move back. Why should I bother?
Yeah.
And some of these ROM hacks can improve these games enough to where they're a little more playable, a little more palatable, and can still preserve the
spirit.
Right. Without making the game so old and dry and crusty that it's hard to enjoy.
I think Simon's Quest, I think this is why Simon's Quest Redacted is such a famous ROM hack, because it was so, like, it was a game that, like, I'm pretty sure was critically enjoyed in its day.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
And has aged very poorly. And just a little bit of light touching with a ROM hack, little fixes, some weird translations here or there, some day-night cycle text that stays on the screen for way too long. and suddenly you have a very playable, very fun Castlevania game.
Yeah.
You know,
It allows younger people to understand how great that game is.
yeah. Hopefully, younger people can also understand how to go to patreon.com/Retro Warriors to give us money, preferably not in the iOS app because they want more money. They're going to charge you extra money for it.
I'd just like to correct that. We are not asking young people to give you our money.
Okay.
Only
all right.
give us money if it is your own money and it is money that you can afford to get rid of. Do not take your parents' money, is what I'm saying.
Look, I'm not drawing any lines in the sand here. You are. But if you want to give us money, then you can attempt to do so at patreon.com/Retro Warriors. Where you can get cool things like uncut versions of this show, which are sad. It was very sad and dark this episode.
I was just worried you were steering a little too close to Soupy Sales there, and that we were going to get in some trouble.
Sales?
Yeah, Soupy Sales.
What is that?
He was a comedian.
I have no idea what this is.
Okay, so Soupy Sales was a comedian and children's entertainer.
It's exactly midnight, and I'm getting this explained.
All right, so Soupy Sales.
Ahead.
He did a children's show. I want to say in the 70s. It might have been around in the 60s as well. But he was a comedian and children's entertainer.
See, I was born in 1988.
Yeah, I was also not alive when Soupy Sales was prominent, but he was a cultural figure that I learned about because he was culturally significant. And he famously did a thing on television, I want to say in the early 70s or late 60s, where on his children's show, as a joke, he told the children to go into the other room where his parents were asleep, because it was an early morning children's show, and go into mommy's purse and get all the fancy green pieces of paper and then put them in an envelope and mail them to Soupy Sales. And it was a joke, and he didn't mean for kids to do it, but apparently like one kid did, and it was a big controversy for like a month, and it caused the FCC to crack down and be like, you cannot tell children to go take their parents' money and give it to you. So I'd just like to say, we're not trying to do that.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I thought this was a well-known story. I didn't realize
I know. I've never heard of this.
Oh, yeah. It's a
Glad
whole
we
thing.
get some history right here at the end of the night. Anyway, we want to thank the following patrons for giving us money. Hopefully, it's not their parents' money. We don't actually have a way to know because the nature of the internet.
Patreon just gives it to us. We don't get to know where it came from.
If this is your parents' money, you should give it back to them.
Yeah.
But I'm not giving it back to you, so I don't know how you can figure that out.
That's between you and them now.
Yeah, that's a you problem. Starting with Chris Minochi.
And for eCare.
Chris Forbes.
Captain Koloth.
David Nethery.
David Svihel.
Eric G.
Little Bunny Fufu 89.
Higgles and his ice cream cats.
And Krista Lair.
Are all the patrons we want to thank for giving us their parents' money. We appreciate it. It spends just like regular money, and so I see no problem here. Soupy Sales. So weird. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week, and as always, let us cling together.